Although the kohanga reo generation has spurred a resurgence in te reo Māori, government policies continue to undercut Māori rights. That's the view of Auckland University Māori Studies Professor Margaret Mutu. 15 years since its first edition, Professor Mutu has just republished The State of Māori Rights. In reflecting on the years since, I asked her what's changed since the first publication.
In 2010, we started trying to do something to change the constitutional makeup of the country. And I have actually seen a huge shift, not necessarily in my generation, but definitely in the next generation, and in particular, my mokopuna. They have grown up in an era where the oppression that my generation felt hasn't been there as much. And so you've got this, what is widely known as the kohanga reo generation, and they've become very influential. And so, whereas in my time was actually shameful to be Maori when I was growing up, these days my mokopuna are so proud to be Maori. They're happy, they look out for what things are Maori, and they make sure they know about things. They're constantly questioning me about all sorts of things, which is quite a shift from what I saw earlier. We could see the shift as people came to know what their rights were, but it's like now it's been more normalised.
So is your contention that it has become cool for your mokopuna to be Māori as a result of the efforts that you've made in the constitutional space?
I think that's just part of it. I think it's become much more acceptable to be Māori, and it's actually become fascinating for the children to learn the stories about this country.
Why?
Well, because they're fascinating stories, and they're stories that come from each hapu, from each iwi. They're different, so you don't all have to be the same and have all the same stories. You've actually got a whole lot of different fascinating stories. And from what I can see, children love that stuff. And the adults are just so proud to be, I'm from Ngāti Kahu, I'm from Te Rarawa, and therefore I know where my grannies grew up and all that sort of thing. They're very proud of it, which is just quite different from what it used to be.
If those constitutional efforts are partially responsible for that shift, what else is responsible, do you think?
I think that there has been a considerable shift in the number of Pākehā who have wanted to understand. Before, I used to get the impression that many Pākehā thought that all we ever did was protest. And my son came home one day and said, "Mum, my friend told me that word Māori and protest were synonymous." And I thought, oh, that's not what's meant to be, right? And so there have been an increasing number of Pākehā groups who deliberately go out and try to let the people know what the treaty is about, what it is Māori are talking about, why it is that Māori keep saying these things over and over again. And that's actually made it a lot easier for us, because then we can concentrate on ourselves.
So if we are to step back though, Māori are still grossly overrepresented in many negative statistics, whether it's justice, education, poverty and incomes in New Zealand. What will it take to shift the dial on that front?
Well, from what we can see and from what we've been able to have a little chance to have a go at is if we can take back control of our own lives, if we can provide the services that are needed, that can look after the resources that are ours, we do a whole lot better at it. And we saw that come through, particularly during COVID, where we had the tradition, we had that oral history of the Spanish flu pandemic during my father's time, and we knew how damaging that was. And we knew we had to move fast, we knew we wouldn't get help, we knew that we had to do it ourselves. And we did. And the result of that was that we got through it a lot better, far, far better than my father's time had gone through it in 1918.
So a government report, Te Ohanga Māori, was published at the start of last year and found the asset base for Māori businesses has grown from $69 billion in 2018 to $126 billion in 2023, an increase of about 83%. At the same time, Māori are still disproportionately living in poverty. So at what point should we expect the former to alleviate the latter?
So Māori don't measure things, and certainly in the Māori world that I work in, we don't measure things according to monetary value. A lot of it is how well our community is doing, how well we're able to get on with each other, how well we look after each other. So that part, the monetarised side of it, is something that belongs more in the Pākehā world. And sometimes it trickles down to us, but most of the time it doesn't. But what will pick us up is we do need that help in order to pick ourselves up. And it's a bit slow coming across when it's stuck over in the Pākehā side. We need to bring it more over to us.
But I mean, these are Māori businesses, right? And presumably there is an economic component to lifting Māori out of poverty as well. So what will it take to see the success of the Māori economy reflected in poverty stats for Māori?
So it needs Māori to be determining where that monetary help should go. At the moment, where it's being directed is not necessarily for our benefit, it's for the benefit of others. And we just have different priorities, and if we are allowed to set our own priorities for ourselves, but we're always, the one thing that we're always concerned about is looking after the entire community. People see that when natural disasters happen. That's the Māori world. We're allowed to be who we are, which is that we need to look after everybody. And we want to be able to do that economic development in a way that benefits our people as well as the rest of the community. And that's not what's happening. It's starting to happen. We see it in National Iwi Cheers Forum. We try very hard on that side to make sure that the benefits get through to our whānau, to our hapu who desperately need it, but also are beneficial for the rest of the community.
Since the book was last published, UNDRIP and He Puapua, which was drafted by a working group as a response to the UN Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples, have become political lightning rods.
Yeah.
Why?
That's quite sad, actually. The Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples is actually a blueprint for implementing Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Te Tiriti o Waitangi was very much about two peoples living together in harmony and taking the best possible care of each other, and that's what we've always held up. And the Declaration is there to do that, remembering that Māori had quite a big hand in the drafting of that declaration. So when we started doing it, and I do have to take my hat off to Nanaia Mahuta, she was very courageous when she said, yes, we need to do that. But it was on the back of the United Nations constantly criticising New Zealand for not doing it and for not helping out with Māori things. So there was a lot of support there for the government to get on and do it. But I think perhaps what we underestimated was that deeply entrenched and normalised racism that's in this country, that's so normalised that people don't realise that it's there, and they want to maintain the status quo, and they don't want to see anything where Māori are out there taking charge of our own lives and being who we are. And that was frightening for some people. And there was a backlash that quite stunned me, but it was there. It was definitely there.
Are there strategic lessons for people who are campaigning for greater Māori rights through that experience?
Yes, and that's what we've been trying to do, especially with this government here, is to try and pull the country together. And that's that kotahitanga, where you're trying to get people to come together, understand each other better, understand where each other is coming from, and therefore how we need to treat each other a lot better. And we saw that because we were pretty stunned at the coalition agreements when they came out, and immediately came together at Tūranga Waiwai to try and sort it out. And the huge numbers that came there, you could see that Māori, we were needing to be in a space where we felt safe, where we didn't feel we were under constant attack all the time. And we wanted to be able to put our hand out to say to people, come, you're our manuhiri. We want to manaaki you. Please help us to manaaki you. But if you don't understand why that is, let us explain it to you. So it's one of the main reasons I write the State of Māori Rights, is so that people do understand where Māori are coming from.
You describe some of the fallout in opposition to both UNDRIP and He Puapua, which was drafted as a response to UNDRIP, as being racist. But I think there would be some people who at least oppose some of the ideas presented in He Puapua because they felt that it would make a New Zealand in which different people had different rights.
I think...
Do you understand that argument?
Yes, I've heard it. I've heard that argument. But what Māori is saying is, this is a country that we came to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years ago. We've been here a very long time. You came over here and we looked, we considered, and we invited you. And we invited you to come and live with us. But we are still who we are. We are still Māori. We are still mana whenua here. And Te Tiriti promised that that would always be the same. I mean, you had the initial constitutional document, which is He Hakaputanga of 1835, that stated that really, really clearly that we were an independent nation. The British accepted that, and then that was re-articulated in Te Tiriti. So we have a right to be Māori in this country and to be who we are, but we always welcome others who come from elsewhere to be who they are as well.
Does Te Tiriti afford Māori, iwi and hapu different rights to non-Māori New Zealanders?
It gives us, or it recognises our right to be who we are.
Yes.
That's all it does.
Does it afford different rights, though, to non-Māori?
It's... The way the treaty is written is that, and the way it's understood by Māori, is that Pākehā, or the subjects of the British Crown, can come here, they can live under their own culture, they can, and in particular, the Queen must keep control of their lawlessness and stop their lawlessness. And so they can be who they are. And in exactly the same way, Māori will always be who we are. And this is our country where we have invited others to come in and we want to live with them in harmony. So that means that our responsibilities, we inherit a huge number of responsibilities because we are mana whenua, we are the Indigenous people of this country. So we are responsible for the well-being, for example, of Papatūānuku. And each of our whānau and hapu and the places that we come from, we are responsible for those. So those are the sorts of responsibilities that we have to look after those things and to always pass them on to the next generation in as good or preferably better than they are now.
The question is, though, whether actualising the treaty and those principles in a modern democratic framework is possible without ascribing different rights to different people. I mean, take co-governance for an example, right? Yeah,
it's a lovely example.
So there would be some people who looked at the co-governance proposals under the last government's Three Waters plan and say that it afforded Māori different rights to non-Māori New Zealanders, and that in a democracy, ultimately, it meant that one person no longer equalled one vote, which meant that fundamentally New Zealand could not be considered a democracy.
Yes, well, I guess you can argue that, but for co-governance, if I can just talk to co-governance, because what co-governance is about is that you will have those who have the technical skills, they're the people who live there, providing their skills for the management of a particular resource, and then you have mana whenua who are there, who have been there for 1,000, 1,500 years, who have another type of knowledge about that same resource. And what you're doing is you're bringing the best possible knowledge and information about that resource to the table and sorting it out together. And for the life of me, I can't see what's wrong with that you get the best possible information and expertise that you can get from everywhere, pull it together and make the best decisions on how to use it. And that's what co-governance was all about. And that's effectively can be applied to the rest of everything as well in terms of the treaty. You get the best of both worlds and you look after each other and take the best possible care of each other. I just have difficulty understanding why that's difficult to understand.
Opponents would say that one person, one vote is the measure of a democracy, and that proposals like that one for a co-governance structure under the last government's Three Waters plan ultimately meant that Māori had a greater degree of representation, that non-Māori couldn't contribute to the appointment of Māori on those boards, and therefore you didn't have a one person, one vote governance system, which is the measure of democracy.
Well, yeah, there's democracy that people think of as one person, one vote. And then there's the democracy that we know of in the Māori world, which is it's for the people to decide. And those two are not the same.
Tell us about that. That's very important.
So in the Māori world, we make decisions by consensus. And this is something that used to fascinate the early Europeans who came here, was that we would sit there seemingly forever trying to make a decision. And that's because everybody must have a say. And at the end of the day, the decision you make is based on all the information you can get, no matter where it comes from. Everybody who has an interest has a say. And then you make a decision by consensus. And those sorts of decisions will hold because everybody will take responsibility for them. Whereas the one person, one vote, which is a very British, European way of thinking of things, that's a case where you can have 51% who say yes and 49% who say no, and you're always going to be arguing with each other, which is what we see in the Parliament at the moment. Quite frankly, I'd rather do the consensus stuff, because once your decision is made, that's it. It's made. And you don't spend forever after that batting it backwards and forwards, because the decision is not a decision that holds.
So in your view, New Zealand should be, Aotearoa should be a consensus type democracy rather than a one person, one vote type democracy.
I think we would do much better if the country agreed, all of the country agreed as best we can. And we do have mechanisms within that consensus making that I saw my old people doing, where they'd go, well, this is what I think, but I will go with what the people say. And if we could have that in this country, we would make huge progress.
And just to be totally clear, in your view, governance of New Zealand, especially if we are to live up to the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti, is inconsistent with a one person, one vote type democracy.
The way that I see the one person, one vote working, it seems to end up with a very unbalanced situation, where you have decisions being made that large parts of the country just hugely oppose and are very, very unhappy about. Whereas if you had a consensus way of deciding things, you get people buying into the decision.
You argue in the book that only those elected in Māori seats have a mandate to represent Māori.
Right.
Why is that?
Because they are there to represent Māori. All the others who are very proud these days to say that they are of Maori descent, and we have a record number of Maori MPs at the moment, are actually in there either at the behest of their electorate or at the behest of their party. But also, in actual fact, the Maori MPs themselves are also in there under their parties as well. But it's only the 7 Māori MPs who are elected by Māori to represent them.
But almost half of the adult Māori population vote in general seats.
Yes, I know.
So they shouldn't expect any Māori representation?
The ones I speak to who do this sort of thing, the view seems to be that their vote's not going to make much difference in the Māori side, and they will try to make a difference in the Pākehā electorate. So, because we do need to have people in Parliament who do understand where Māori are coming from, because Parliament, by and large, well, Parliament was set up for Pākehās, and in order for Pākehā to be able to understand where Māori are coming from, you need Māori in there. And so a lot of my relations will try to get Māori in there in the hope that they can make things clearer.
It was my sense that throughout the book you used the number of Māori MPs and the number of Māori cabinet ministers as a sort of measure or proxy for a government's broader attitudes to Māori rights at the time. And as you mentioned, I think we have more Māori MPs at the moment than we've ever had in the Parliament. The current cabinet includes 8 ministers who whakapapa Māori, iwi leaders, fluent te reo Māori speakers. And yet you say this is an anti-Māori government. How can that be?
Very muchly so. So you've got a government at the moment that right from the outset said that it was going to strip Māori of our rights, and they were quite unashamed about that. And they've certainly done that.
How so? How did they say that?
They closed down Te Aka Whai Order, the Māori Health Authority. They, in local government, they've said that there will be referendums over Māori Māori councillors, but not over others, ward councillors. They've stripped out funding, over $1 billion they've stripped out of various social welfare packages. The amount of legislation that has been changed to strip out anything to do with the treaty, anything to do with Māori, has been quite stunning. And that's why the Waitangi Tribunal has been working overtime for the past 2.5 years trying to deal with the urgency of this legislation that is just stripping us of rights. So I think there have been 7 or 8 hearings in the last year or last couple of years just on the urgency of the legislation being passed to strip Māori of our rights. There's a huge number, Jack. I would have to get the book out and read out what they all are. There are so many of them. And for that reason, there's a lot of pain in the Māori world because we are suffering quite badly from this.
It's fair to say, I think, that Te Pāti Māori is in a state of crisis, at least relative to the first few months of this parliamentary term. In your view, who or what is to blame for it?
Oh, well, only the Māori Party will know that. And that when these sorts of things happen, and I'm writing, drafting stuff for the state of Māori rights, I like to wait to see what happens. So I'm aware that there is conflict in there. As part of National Iwi Chairs Forum, we did try to help sort it out. We didn't succeed.
Yeah.
And then you've got things going on, but, to make a call on it now, I wouldn't want to make a call just now. I just want to wait and just see what the people do. Our people can be very constructive and very imaginative about what they do, and I just want to see what they do.
And finally then, if you reflect on some of those political lightning rods of the last couple of years, and indeed the 15 years since you first published the book, and you also consider the areas of progress that you described earlier, do you feel a sense of optimism?
Oh, yes. When I look at what we have been able to achieve over the time, I mean, even in the media world, if I look at the Maori radio stations, I look at Māori television, we didn't have that back in the 1990s when I started doing this stuff. I look at the kohanga reo, the kura kaupapa Māori, the whare kura, the whare wānanga, and sure, they struggle. They're hugely under-resourced. But out of that are coming people who are confident and proud and not feeling constantly oppressed. I mean, that's the beautiful thing that I see. We have got a lot more Māori coming through training in the trades and through the universities. It's been lovely seeing the number of incredible students coming through the university, and they're going out into the professions, and so the professions are starting to change as well. So when this all happened and you know, this government attacked us and took all our rights off us, it's been hard, I have to say. It's been exhausting for us, but it has enabled us to say to the rest of the country, this is what was intended. Can we talk about that? Because we couldn't get a conversation going before that. So I do have to thank them for doing that part of it for us. And I think just looking at what the Human Rights Commission, they've just done a survey, and it shows that an increasing number of people not only want to discuss the treaty and what it means, but they understand it a lot more. The numbers have increased significantly. So yeah, I'm very positive about these things.
Well, tēnā koe. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.